like a brand new pair of jeans.
What do you think the secret to happiness is?
Honestly, I think the secret to happiness is probably...
Tough question, give me a sec.
I mean, my happy place would just be to go traveling and just not have to worry about money or anything.
I think pedicures are the key to happiness.
Ice cream is definitely up there.
I think mostly being with my family makes me happy.
Finding your purpose in life.
I think it's really about finding that nice center of being unique.
I'm the happiest when I'm just in the present moment.
I find happiness by being with people.
Like when I close my eyes and don't even care if anyone sees me dancing. It's the way that I feel when I'm with you. Brand new.
So that's where we're gonna start today, huh? The secret to happiness? Okay, sure, why not? I mean, it's only basically the biggest question in the history of the world, but yeah, we're smart people. Let's tackle it. You know, the question has been around since the beginning of time. But to be honest, the kinds of things people think will make them happy never really change. Money, fame, romance, surviving the bubonic plague. Okay, that last one has changed. I'll tell you what's more interesting though, all the ways throughout history that people try to force happiness to come their way. Did you know the ancient Greeks believed you could bring happiness and good fortune by smashing a pomegranate in your house? Yeah, I assume this was in the days before carpet and mothers. The ancient Romans believed you could ward off unhappiness by licking your finger and rubbing it behind your ear. Kinda gross. Here, let me try it. Okay, if I'm being honest right now, I gotta say I do feel a little better. But that stuff was all just in the ancient past, right? I mean, nowadays we don't have silly superstitions about things like horseshoes, four-leaf clovers, lucky rabbit's foot? That's disgusting, people. That's a piece of a dead animal. And let's not even start with all the books, websites, classes, and products out there, all to aid you in the relentless pursuit of that blissful, wonderful, always just around the corner, happiness. Well, what if it really was that simple? What if there was some, I don't know, amulet you could wear around your neck? As long as you treasure this amulet, my child, I promise you will always be happy. Anyway, what if I told you that this magical treasure not only exists, but, and here's the kicker, you've already got it. In 1937, Harvard began the longest study ever of human happiness. They took over 700 teenagers, rich to poor and everything in between. They interviewed them, tested them, measured them every which way, and then, and this is the interesting part, for 70 years, they've been tracking them, giving them questionnaires, taking their vitals, even scanning their brains. They became everything from factory workers to doctors to senators. One even became president. And through it all, the researchers have been there trying to discover from this mountain of lifetimes, once and for all, the secret to human happiness. The answer? Relationships. There's your good luck charm, my friends. Take care of your relationships. Treasure them. The study is so absolutely, positively unequivocal on this one point, it led the lead researcher to say, and I quote, "Happiness is love. Full stop." So why are we starting today with this big, age-old question about happiness? Because happiness is love. Happiness is relationships. And if that's true, then anything that damages your relationships will damage your happiness just the same.
In high school, I was at a jazz festival and I just heard a guitar player like soloing on stage, and it was like, I really want to do that. I really want to be on stage just playing some killer solo. My name is Preston. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I met my girlfriend Chantel 3 years ago. What really attracted me to her was her compassion for other people. We've had lots of great times. We definitely had a lot of painful experiences too. I first saw pornography when I was like 8 to 10, around there. Like growing up, I should have been chasing girls or talking to girls, but I was too busy watching pornography.
Now, why talk about how porn affects relationships? I mean, relationships don't watch porn, right? People do, individuals. And the effects are happening individually in each viewer's brain. And maybe that's all that would matter if we spent our lives alone, but we don't. We spend our lives in relationships, in couples, in families, in communities. And if the only thing we look at is how porn affects us as individuals, we're arguably ignoring porn's most significant impact: its tendency to change the ways we relate to other people.
I'm Travis.
I'm Emily. We have a 5-year-old son named Gideon. We live in Kansas City, Missouri.
We love downtown Kansas City. I mean, we're down here every week, a lot of times multiple times a week. It's just the place to be. And I think we were probably dating about a year or more before she, found out about my porn problem. And man, I would stay up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, really, until I just was so exhausted that I couldn't stay awake anymore, just downloading and consuming porn.
If we want to talk about how porn affects relationships, we have to talk about how porn affects the ways we think and act toward other people. And to talk about that, I think you know where I'm going with this, we have to talk about a little Italian monkey. What, you didn't know there were Italian monkeys? Well, have I got a story for you. One day, back in the early 1990s, a little monkey sat alone in her cage in a laboratory at an Italian university with electrodes attached to her brain. Why were there electrodes in her brain? Because scientists in that lab were testing her motor cells. Motor cells. That means physical action, folks. In other words, the brain electrodes were not there to test what the monkey thought. They were there to test what the monkey physically did. Why am I saying this? Just trust me. It's going to be important later in the story. So these electrodes make a sound when the monkey does something that sets off that part of her brain. Pick something up, bzzz. Throw something, bzzz. You get the idea. Well, our story starts at lunchtime. Nobody doing any experiments, little monkey just hanging out in her cage, minding her business. But at that very moment, across the lab, one of the researchers picked up a peanut and bzzz. The monkey's electrodes went off. Now, how amazing is that? Okay, did you guys remember the thing I told you to remember? You forgot, didn't you? Dang it. I said it was going to be important. The electrodes were attached to the part of the monkey's brain that actually physically reaches out and picks up a peanut. But the monkey is just sitting there, clear across the room, not eating a peanut, as someone else eats a peanut. And the monkey's brain is buzzing as if she was the one doing it. It was a total fluke, accidental discovery. What that scientist had just stumbled upon was, to quote another researcher, mirror neurons, one of the most important discoveries ever made about the brain. In fact, here, let Dr. Doan explain it. He has like 3 degrees, 2 of which are in neuroscience. Basically, he's really, really smart.
So as human beings, when we're watching something, such as a video or a movie, we have neurons that fire in our brains that are similar to if we were doing it ourselves. So mirror neurons are extremely powerful.
Okay, so we learn by watching, but it's deeper than that. If we're emotionally connected or if something excites us, then that helps us learn better.
What is dangerous, though, is that during that excitement, if we're exposed to bad things, we're learning bad things more efficiently. So being emotional actually leads to better learning.
Here's Dr. Jill Manning, a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in sexual addiction.
One thing that I feel very passionate about with the issue of pornography is that pornography consumption does not just develop habits or even addictions. It changes people, and it changes you in ways that will handicap your ability to connect and attach in healthy, loving ways.
So my name is Ash Cruz. I am from LA. I'm a SoCal girl, definitely through and through. I get cold once it hits like 70 degrees. So I'm coming to Oregon because my fiance lives up here.
So this is Ryan, my fiance.
Hello.
And we're getting married in January. I'm so excited for that. I love yellow. I have a yellow sweater, yellow nails, yellow pillows. I have yellow cuffs here, there. These count. These are yellow. I have yellow soap. So I started looking at porn because I was really curious about the human body, and I was probably watching every other night, if not every night. One of the ways that it changed me was in how I view men. It changed the way in which I relate to people. I thought I was satisfying some desire. Afterwards, I would just feel empty, just nothing.
All right, so porn changes us. But what does it change? I mean, it's not like porn changes your taste in music or, I don't know, sweaters. No, the things about you that porn changes are exactly the things that matter in your relationships. In fact, here's a good way to break it down. Porn changes what we love, how much we love, how we think about those we love, and how we express love. So let's talk about that. How exactly does porn change what we love?
Scholars have what they refer to as the arousal template. In simple terms, it's kind of just means what do we find attractive.
That's Dr. Jason S. Carroll, Associate Director of the Wheatley Institution. He's also a professor of marriage and family relations, so basically he knows a lot about how things affect relationships.
Pornography right now functions as a supernormal stimulus. Everything is exaggerated, and as we consume those images over and over again, it can't help but influence how we see ourselves, but also how we start to see others.
It makes sense that porn would affect what we love, because over time it can change what we're attracted to and what we desire. And that's where we come to the second way porn affects relationships.
There's been new longitudinal studies that have come out that have shown negative impacts on the sense of satisfaction with the relationships and the sense of quality of the relationships.
It was affecting my relationship with Chantel in a way that I would have never imagined. I was physically attracted to her, but I was so conditioned to watching pornography and looking at a computer screen that being with a real person, it wasn't enough anymore.
Porn can cause a decrease in relationship satisfaction, or how in love we are with someone. It can also change how we think about those we love or how we view others.
Over and over and over again, pornography tells the same story.
Let's let Dr. Gail Dines chime in. She's the Professor Emerita of Sociology and Women's Studies at Wheelock College in Boston. In other words, listen up.
You have no morality, you have no capacity for intimacy, you don't want connection, that women are disposable sex objects. I mean, this is the narrative of pornography.
Porn doesn't care about the person, it cares about body parts, physical traits. I mean, nobody looks at porn and thinks, those look like interesting people. I wonder if they have any hobbies. But here's the problem. The more fixated we are on those physical traits, the less concern we have for the actual people behind them.
I'm Kinsey, and this is Dylan. So we like to play with fire. Fireworks are our jam.
I did light my shirt on fire once.
With a bottle rocket.
Right before that, she said, be careful, don't light your shirt on fire, and then it lit on fire, so.
While we were dating, I noticed that Dylan became pretty closed off. I couldn't get him to talk about anything. I would try to get him to talk about his day or feelings or emotions, and he was almost like a brick wall. And to me, that created kind of a warning sign or a flag that something was wrong.
She just flat out asked me, have you or do you struggle with pornography? And I remember taking a minute and saying, yes, it's something that I struggle with now and something that I've struggled with for a while.
And I think initially when I found out, I felt shattered.
I could tell it was a destructive behavior, and I was kind of viewing women kind of more as an object.
I think it's so easy when you're constantly watching porn to just see women as these objects that are only there for my gratification. There were so many moments that I could have been helping us experience the joys of a family that, you know, she kind of felt like a single mom, I think, for a lot of years, because I was more focused on my porn than I was her and our son. I think my view of love before I probably even said this on multiple occasions, is love doesn't exist.
Pornography is not about relationship. It is about immediate gratification. It is about me, my.
Let's hear from Dr. Freda Bush. She's the president of the Medical Institute for Sexual Health in Austin, Texas.
Therefore, you're getting a distorted view of what it really means to be human.
I didn't want a real relationship with anyone. The drama that you have to put up with, all the other things, like, that wasn't worth it to me. I just wanted to be alone and do whatever I wanted to do. It just couldn't, the real life couldn't live up to the fantasy expectation that I had.
Of course, porn is going to change how we think about those we love, because it makes us see them as less than human. And that immediately impacts the ways we express, or don't express, that love each and every day.
The human brain, when it seeks and looks at pornography, it looks for new content and variety of content. So softcore porn won't stay softcore for very long. For the human brain to be stimulated and excited, it has to escalate and change content.
I got to the point where just viewing porn really wasn't enough for me. And so I wanted, kind of real life porn. And so I really began to seek out, different women in internet chat rooms, dating sites, and try to see if I can get them to send me anything that they'd be willing to.
So what we expose our brains to physically changes our brain at the molecular level, but if we feed it garbage like porn and sexual content that's violent, that can actually train the brain to change in a very harmful way.
I felt that no woman had the same struggle that I did, and everyone had normal women problems. I kind of just started diving into things that were more hardcore. It got to the point where I went into trying to find random chat rooms. There was a moment in which I was asked to meet up with someone and they gave me their address. And I don't know, everything kind of came to a screeching halt in my brain, and I realized the mere idea that I was tempted to meet someone was like, I can't do this. This is too much. This has gone too far. I almost did something that was potentially dangerous and life-threatening.
Today what happens is when they put porn into Google, they get catapulted into a world of sexual violence, degradation, dehumanization. I think it really has a terrible impact on the way they think about sexuality, intimacy, and connection.
I had these feelings of worthlessness because was like I had almost given up my willpower to this pornography. It had like taken over my life, kind of. It was kind of controlling and dictating my life.
And I reached a point where I was just done. And it wasn't that I thought, the actual thought, I want to die. It was that I want the pain to stop. I want the guilt to stop. I want to stop hurting people around me. And so one night I took a cocktail with a bunch of pills. And I remember standing and the pills kicked in and I dropped over. And then I just remember everything going black. And it was, I think a day or some odd later when I came to, I think I thought that would be enough of a wake-up call. But I never truly admitted the extent of my porn problem to anyone, and I never really began to deal with those root issues that were still there. And so, eventually led to me continuing to seek out relationships with other women.
And the studies show the less interest they have in sex, they have more erectile dysfunction, more likely to have risky behavior, more likely to think of women as disposable sex objects. We just have tons and tons of research. There is over 40 years of research.
So porn can change how we express love. But sadly, that is only where the effects begin.
Porn made me think that being in a relationship with someone meant all there is physical intimacy. Just a go kind of mentality and like get what you want get it now, and that's it. So when I first started dating Ryan, there were definitely times where I think I was seeking like my own like physical gratification, and I was just viewing Ryan as like an object to satisfy that. And if he didn't want to like be physically intimate with me, then it would just push me towards wanting to watch porn.
I felt like intimacy was really difficult in our marriage, and I feel like it continues to be. I also noticed that he became more defensive. He would just snap at random occasions with no explanation as to why. And it made me question if I wanted to maintain the relationship or not. I was concerned that the behaviors he was exhibiting were going to continue and just magnify over time. And I feared that that would affect our relationship negatively.
And there are now dozens of studies showing those who view pornography have about 2 times the likelihood of getting divorced. Premarital couples have found that when they're dating, courtship couples, much more likely to break up. But when you actually start to see relationships not staying together, I mean, that's kind of the quintessential measure of, is this having a negative impact?
And as more and more studies are released on the ways porn affects relationships, the evidence gets stronger. There is not a single longitudinal study showing that porn makes relationships better, and there are more studies every year showing it makes them worse. In fact, one of the biggest things to happen in the world of relationship studies in the last few years was a letter from the Gottman Institute. What is the Gottman Institute? Well,
marriage expert John Gottman.
The Gottman Institute. 30 years and thousands of couples.
The nation's foremost researcher on marriage and relationships.
The experts at the Gottman Institute.
Dr. Gottman, you say you can predict with 94% accuracy whether a couple is going to stay together or not.
For a long time, the Gottmans didn't have much to say about porn, which is why it grabbed everyone's attention when they suddenly released a letter that said, "In summary, we are led to unconditionally conclude that for many reasons, pornography poses a serious threat to couple intimacy and relationship harmony." On some level, everyone knows what real love looks like, and most people would look at the violence and victimization in porn and say, yeah, that's bad, we probably don't want that in our relationship. But here's an interesting thought experiment for you. What if porn only showed healthy relationships? No, seriously. What if porn depicted nothing but real people in loving, committed relationships? If the problem with porn is the violence and abuse, then would taking all that stuff out make it, I don't know, good for you? While you're thinking about that, here's a question for you. It might be a little off topic, but here we go. What's your favorite machine? Tough call here. What do you think? Pickup truck? Curling iron? Yeah, okay. I know for most of you it's probably your phone. Junkies. For myself, I probably gotta go with the waffle iron. If you think about it, you got like 1,000 choices. And that's after you've decided whether you're going American, Belgian, or Norwegian. Go with Norwegian, trust me. It's just one tiny example of the fact that we've got a machine for just about everything these days. You ever stop and think about it? I mean, how many machines have you used today? For most of you, the day probably started when a machine woke you up. Machines meet so many of our needs, from the machines that'll keep you breathing and alive in a hospital, all the way down to the machines that serve no other purpose than to entertain us or waste our time. That has some experts asking just how far can our machine relationships go?
So what's really cool about sexual intimacy is that we have hormones that are being released that are actually bonding hormones. But because of porn, we're literally bonding with the screen. And when that happens, that tears up families, that tears up relationships, that tears up the fabric of what our communities are made of.
There are a lot of things we can say about porn and relationships. But maybe the most important thing we can say is also the most basic. Watching pornography causes you to bond with a box of wires and circuits, while your real relationships are out there somewhere else, passing you by. And that would still be true, whether porn depicted healthy relationships or not.
When Chantal found out about the pornography use, she was really hurt. She was confused. She thought she wasn't enough anymore. really put us into quite the depression. I started to get hit by a lot of guilt and shame because it was affecting my relationship with Chantel. I've been watching pornography for like more than half my life, and I just wanted to get out of that slump, out of that lethargic feeling, out of the depression. Just to see us like fall apart over like porn videos was really hard for me to see.
The lady on the screen or the man on the screen never say no. That's not reality. And so my concern would be that you then go seeking elsewhere than the person that you have relationship with.
It's a little over 2 years. One of the other women that I'd been having an ongoing affair with for a long time kind of reached out to Emily via Facebook.
And she's just like, your husband's living a double life, he has another Facebook account, and all these different things. And I just felt like completely lost.
The evening after Emily had received those messages, we went out on a walk.
My first question was, what do you want? And he said, I don't know. And hearing that answer, like hearing from your husband, you know, I don't know what I want, it's just heartbreaking. Like, oh, so my husband doesn't even know if he wants to be married to me. The years leading up to that, those were very traumatic years for me. I mean, betrayal trauma, that's something that spouses go through when they've been married to someone who betrays them, and then it's like betrayal after betrayal after betrayal, and you kind of develop this PTSD from it. I turned into a shell, and I had, you know, built up this wall to protect myself so I wouldn't get hurt anymore, and so things that would happen, you know, I just started blocking them out.
And I just, you know, began sobbing. And while she was mad, it was more like she was looking at me as someone who needed help. And she was deeply hurt. You know, I remember her looking at me multiple times and saying, you know, you can get past this, we can get help. It's like, I'm not leaving you. I want to help you fight this. And, you know, it was just, at that point, I didn't want the marriage to end. At that point, I hated the porn, and I was so frustrated at myself, and I was just sick of it.
It's important to recognize that there are times when sticking with someone is not the right thing to do, especially when the relationship has become degrading and abusive. And ultimately, the primary responsibility for recovery rests on the individual and not anyone else.
It took Kenzie a few days to think about if she wanted to continue down this path in our relationship. I knew that I loved Kenzie at that point and that I could see myself marrying her, and that's what was important to me. And I kind of had that internal moment of I'll do anything that I can to make it work. So the next day I met with a counselor, and then shortly after I began a 12-step program because I knew that I needed to improve myself before I could work on our relationship.
I saw that regardless of the outcome of our relationship, he was going to overcome this pornography problem. And so at that moment, I wanted to stick by him and I wanted to help him through it.
Love. It means so many things. I mean, you ever stop and think about how funny it is that you use the exact same word to describe your feelings for your boyfriend or girlfriend as you use for your relationship with your grandma? You can love your country, you can love your cat, you can love your favorite team, you can love reading or running or cooking, you can love monkeys, or you can love watching old B horror movies with terrible acting. So what does love really mean? It can be so many things. How do you describe love, other than with the word love?
I think love is understanding.
Love is patient,
Giving.
enduring.
Love is sharing your pizza with your family. Love is really compassion.
Love is a funny joke in the morning. Love, it's complicated and sometimes miserable.
I think really love is sacrifice.
Someone once said the best synonym for love isn't any of those words you'd expect. It's Focus. To love someone is to focus. What a person looks like, how they talk, how they walk, what makes them laugh, what makes them cry. But then porn comes in and tears that focus away. And we can talk about a mountain of studies and statistics linking porn use to everything from increased marital infidelity to erectile dysfunction. But it's really about focus. There is no substitution for the experience of focusing on another person. And there is no substitution for the feeling when, lo and behold, despite all your flaws and mistakes, that someone focuses back on you.
I'm much happier without the porn, for sure. Now that I'm able to focus more on my passions and the things that I always wanted to do.
Since overcoming pornography, I'm happier. I find true joy and not just that temporary joy of what my computer was giving me.
About 6 to 8 months without watching porn, I began to notice, here I have this absolutely incredibly beautiful wife. I could see the true beauty of her inside and out. I mean, her decision to stick with me and to believe in me when I was at my worst ultimately changed my life.
I'm so much happier now than I was before, just because I no longer feel that I'm being tied down to my phone. Having a relationship with someone is so much better than what I could have with a screen.
The motivation for me the most is my own personal relationship with Chantel. Definitely happier at this point of where I am now than where I was before.
We still have arguments. We still get frustrated with each other. We still have rough days.
It's not about perfection necessarily, but it's about real life relationships and valuing them more than images on a screen, because those can't bring happiness.
I find joy that lasts in the things that last.
There's still so much more to say. We've barely scratched the surface of porn's effect on the world. Take everything we know about how porn changes the brain and damages relationships. Times that by the hundreds of millions of people who downloaded porn last year, then consider the implications. The brain, the heart, the world. These are the three parts of our message, and it all centers on the heart. Consider the heart. Consider the things people do every day for love. They step in front of bullets. They uproot their lives, move their homes, change their names, all in the wonderful, awful, joyous, single-minded pursuit of the heart, to love and be loved. The deepest needs of your own fragile heart can only ever be met in the fragile heart of another person.
We hope you enjoyed episode 2, The Heart, where we explore the potential risks of pornography for relationships, connection, and love. When we think about what brings us the most happiness and joy in our lives, it really boils down to relationships. This episode has an incredibly important message that needs to be heard by everybody. And that's where you come in. We need your help to spread this message, the message that pornography can negatively impact individuals, relationships, and society, something we'll explore in the next episode. In fact, you can do something right now. Share this link with somebody that you care about, or share it on social media. Or you could simply have a conversation with somebody about this series. Believe me, this movement has grown to what it is because of people like you, who are willing to stand up and say something or do something. One of my favorite quotes of all time is by Edward Everett Hale. He said, "I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something, and I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do." So be bold and help us change the conversation by sharing this documentary series.